Good afternoon. I am Prabhakar and topic of today's lecture is risk mapping of disease occurrence on health GIS. So learning objective of this lecture are understanding the concepts of risk and hotspot and what are the techniques to perform such operations. At the end of the lecture, it is expected that you should be aware of what is risk mapping, what is hotspot, and what is cold spot, how to calculate hotspot and cold spot, what are the tools present to perform such operations. Before starting the lecture, let's try to see, let's ask these questions to ourselves. How to identify the potential hotspot of disease spread, or what are the potential hotspot of disease outbreak, what are the chances of having pollution level more than a threshold value at any particular location. We may be interested in the pollution level crossing some threshold value, because if pollution level is very high, it may uh, cause respiratory diseases. So based on this, risk can be calculated. And apart from disease mapping, this technology like hotspot and risk mapping can be used for crime analysis also. What are the hotspot of crime incidents and what are the safe zones with respect to some particular kind of crime. What also, this technique can help you to find out the chances of having some particular kind of crime at any location. So all this kind of analysis is possible only if you are having geotag data. If geotag data is not available, then whatever questions are written here, these cannot be answered. So basic requirement in GIS is geotag data. So why are we interested in disease mapping? So basic requirement of basic advantage of mapping is to visualize the spatial distribution of disease spread. What are the location, what is the areal extent covered by disease, how many people are affected with respect to location. So these things can be visualized very easily if you have mapped the disease. So that is one basic example of application of disease mapping. Apart from mapping and visualization, risk areas of a specific disease can be identified. uh, and what are the areas of having potential risk, like what are the chances of getting some particular disease at any location. These kind of questions, these kind of predictions can be done if disease mapping is done. Also, to understand the epidemiology of disease over various spatial scales, like what are the causes of disease spread, what kind of pattern is present at the district level, at state level, or at village level. So this kind of analysis, this kind of understanding of the disease can be developed if disease has been mapped. Maps also provide uh, evidence to monitor the progress towards health commitment. So, if you have mapped initially the number of points for disease, and later on also you are mapping the disease, so basically time series analysis can be performed, and how the disease had been controlled in this manner can be easily seen from the maps, and progress of the objective can be monitored. Also, this mapping helps to targeted delivery of or targeted resource allocation based on evidence from map. Targeted resource allocation means wherever disease outbreak is larger, number of cases are larger, in that area more resources can be focused. So We'll go to next. uh, Here in first point we have seen advantage of disease mapping is we can see the spatial distribution of disease spread. So here is the visualize an example. This is a map of coronavirus confirmed cases of Uttar Pradesh. So if you are seeing these number of cases in the form of table, you may not be able to get the spatial uh, view of the disease spread in this state if you are seeing the table. But the moment map is created, information conveyed will become more easily. You can understand what are the locations where more number of cases are there, what are the location where less number of cases are there. So this information carried by map is more than information carried by a table. So that's advantage of visualizing the uh, disease spread. If you and this visualization can be done only if disease has been geotagged, mapping has been geotagged. Apart from this disease, apart from visualization of the disease, if you need to calculate high risk areas, predict potential areas for disease, you need to find, and if you need to find out hotspot of the disease spread, you need to do further statistical analysis. So that analysis starts with the basic concept of spatial autocorrelation, and this spatial autocorrelation concept is based on the Tobler's first law of geography, which says that everything is related to everything, but nearby things are more related than distant things, which mean the things which are nearby, they will be more related. Means if value of a variable x is changing at any particular location, it will have effect over its surroundings. So this is the concept of first law of geography. So based on this concept, spatial autocorrelation is calculated. So spatial autocorrelation is the correlation of variable x with itself through space. So generally, when we say correlation, correlation is calculated between two variables, variable x and variable y. But in case of autocorrelation, autocorrelation is basically correlation of variable x with itself, and where another variable is measured through a space. What is happening here? A variable x is measured at a location, at some particular location, and at some other distance d, same variable is measured. Now what is the correlation between them? This way autocorrelation is calculated. So this tells you up to which extent uh, occurrence of event x has effect over its surrounding. Also it tells about the values which are similar or dissimilar. Basically it tells about the pattern, pattern of data distribution. It is clustered pattern or random pattern or dispersed pattern. So I mean this kind of pattern. Here you can see three kind of patterns. uh, this is clustered pattern, where similar values are clustered here and here. This is dispersed pattern, and this one is random pattern, where randomly values are distributed. And which uh, and this belongs to which kind of pattern? It can be calculated by calculating autocorrelation. So there are many ways to find out this autocorrelation. One of the method is Moran's I index. There are other methods also, C index and all, but I will talk about Moran's I index. So here is the formula to find out Moran's I index. It is similar to correlation formula. where but the difference is in correlation we have x and y two variables, but here we are having only one variable. That is the difference between correlation and autocorrelation. So in this formula you can see I equal to I is Moran's index, equal to n, capital N is total number of cases or total number of samples present, and sigma I equal to 1 to n, sigma j equal to 1 to n. So and wij is uh, weight between sample at location I and sample at location j. Then xi minus x bar. X bar is the mean of variable x. Again xj is variable at an location j. So here the these things xi, xj, x bar, these things are measured value or observed values, but wij, this is the weight, this need to be calculated. There are many ways to assign these weights. Assign weights based on distance, based on inverse distance, based on contiguity properties. There are few ways. I will come to them later. So and since this is this autocorrelation index is a ratio of uh, this xi minus x bar, xj minus x bar divided by standard deviation square, basically divided by variance of x. So this basically lies between -1 and 1, just like correlation coefficient. So if this index is negative, which means there is a negative autocorrelation. Negative autocorrelation means there is a dispersion kind of distribution present in the data. When this correlation, this index value is 0, which means there is no autocorrelation, and if there is no autocorrelation, which means pattern is following random distribution. If this is +1, which means it is uh, positive autocorrelation, perfectly autocorrelation, and it and the distribution is following clustered pattern. So here you can see this one is the clustered pattern. So in this case you will find index value towards +1. This one is a dispersion distribution. In this case you will find autocorrelation index value, Moran I index value -1, because this is perfectly dispersed. This black and white cells are alternatively arranged, so here it will be -1 perfectly. Whereas if half of the cells are black and half of the cells are white, in that case it will become perfectly clustered. All values are clustered. Black is clustered in one side and white is clustered in other side. If half of the cells are black and half of the cells are white, in that case autocorrelation Moran I index value will be +1. Here this is the random pattern. Random means there is no correlation, so in this case Moran I index will be 0. So difference between autocorrelation and correlation coefficient is autocorrelation involves only one variable, however your correlation coefficient involves two variable. This autocorrelation coefficient calculate includes weights, whereas correlation coefficient does not have any weights. In correlation coefficient, it is the correlation between variable x and variable y, but in case of autocorrelation, it is between variable x and x at some other distance. That is called x at lag distance. So these are few differences between autocorrelation and correlation coefficient. So if I is calculated, then statistical significance also need to be done to check that the calculated I value is reliable or not. Here z is equal to I minus expected value of I divided by standard error. So this is standard formula to calculate z, x minus mean divided by uh, standard deviation of x. That is standard form. This is standard formula to find out z score. Here x is your I and mean value is expectation of I, that is minus 1 upon n minus 1. This is calculated from this formula. Expectation value of this expectation value is calculated from here and it is coming minus 1 upon n minus 1. If you want to see that how this expectation of I means mean of Moran index is minus 1 upon n minus 1, you can see the book and I find out the derivation. Anyway, that much detail is not required. So after doing after having I expectation of I and standard error, you will get z score. Now we will come to here z score. What z score tells you about significance level. So here you can see this curve. This curve is a normal distribution curve. So and if your z score is following in this region, in either this right hand side tail or left hand side tail, which means it is significant. If z score is falling between, if it is falling in this range, which means Moran I index is non-significant and hence it is not clustered, it is not dispersed, and it is random pattern. So if we are talking about 90% confidence interval, so which means this value, this x-axis is z value, this is 1.65 and this value at this location is minus 1.65. So if your z value is greater than 1.65 or less than minus 1.65, in that case your test is significant. If you are doing significance test for 95% confidence interval, in that case this interval becomes 1.96 uh, and here it becomes minus 1.96. So to become significant, your z score should be more than 1.96 or less than minus 1.96. Similarly, for 99% confidence interval, it is 2.58 and minus 2.58. So your z score should be more than either 2.58 or less than minus 2.58. So corresponding to z score, you can find out p value. So 95% confidence interval means 0.05 is your p value. So if your p value is less than 0.05, then it is 95%, then it is 95% confident. If p value is more than 0.05, which means your value is not significant up to 95% confidence interval. So if your z score is lying in right hand side tail, it means it is clustered pattern, which means your Moran I index is positive. Then only it will lie in right hand side. If your Moran I index is negative, so what will happen? If your Moran I index is negative, negative minus negative, this will become very high. So it will lie in left hand side tail. So if it is in left hand side tail, which means your distribution is dispersed. And if it is not in left hand side, right hand side, then it will be somewhere near to random distribution. So this way confidence testing or significance testing is done for Moran I index. Next is general G statistics. So till now Moran I index can tell you about spatial autocorrelation. Which means it is telling that there is clustered pattern or random pattern or dispersion, means a negative autocorrelation. But this Moran I index is not telling you that there is a cluster of high values or there is a cluster of low values, which means it is not telling you that there is hot spot or cold spot. Hot spot is called for cluster of high values, and cold spot is for a cluster of low values, means when low values are clustered it is known as cold spot, when high values are clustered it is known as hot spot. So to know that there is a hot spot present or cold spot present in the data, you need to apply general G statistic. So G statistic calculate a index, that is G, and if G index is very large, which means high values are clustered together. If G index is very low, which means low values are clustered together. And there is significance test for this also. There will be potential hotspot of larger value and potential hotspot of potential cold spot for smaller value if test is significant. So a formula to find out general G statistic is this. Here you can see in the numerator it is sigma wij xi xj. X is your random variable, value of random variable at location I. Xj is value of random variable at location j, and it is divided by sigma I sigma j xij. So you can see in this formula the only difference between numerator and denominator is this weights wij. And if you find out expected value of G, means mean value of G statistics, so you will get summation of weights divided by n into n minus 1. N is the total number of points present, and this way variance of G statistic can be calculated. This mean value and variance value, these are required to find out the significance of calculated G value. So as already told that this G score tells you about the cluster of low values or cluster of high values. So this can be used to find out where are the unexpected spikes present in the data. Spikes can be of cluster of low values or cluster of high values. This can be used to find out is there are any kind of cluster present in your data. If it is present, then it is cluster of low values or cluster of high values. So this kind of data, this way this G statistic, general G, can help you to get information from the data. There is a drawback of this: if low value cluster is there and high value cluster is also there, they may cancel out each other and you will get that there is no cluster present in the data. So here significance test, same, the standard formula for Z, x minus mean of x divided by standard deviation. So here x is your G. So G minus mean of G divided by standard error, and here we have seen mean of G is sigma wij divided by n into n minus 1, and G you will get from here. X is random variable and standard error can be calculated from this. So if your Z score is again lying in right hand side tail, then which means high values are cluster. If Z score is lying in left hand side tail, which means low values are clustered. And if G is lying in this range, in this region, which means there are no clusters present and it is your data is following random distribution. So till now what we have seen Moran's index, which tells you the uh, presence of spatial autocorrelation, that there is a cluster present or not. General G statistics tells you there is a hotspot present or not, but these tests did not tell you where are the clusters present. They are just telling, this G statistic is telling, is there any hotspot present or not. Moran index is telling, is there a cluster present or not. Location, these tests are not telling. So there is another test, GITIS or GI star. So this method tells you the hotspots present in the data, basically location of the hotspots. So GI star is equal to, and here in this case, to find out significance of this test, significance of this GI score, you don't have to calculate another Z score, because GI star is itself Z score. Because as you know, in Z score what we are having value of random variable minus mean of that random variable divided by standard deviation. So that you can see in GI star formula already. Here it is Wij, weight between I and j, and xi, xj is sample value, random variable value at location j, and weight between I and j. And here it is x bar. X bar is mean of your random variable x. Wij is weight between I and j. So basically, suppose this is the case where few polygons are present. So I will say this is polygon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So suppose there are 5 polygons present. So GI star, so let's say I equal to 1 for this polygon 1. So GI star score will be calculated for polygon 1. So in this case, weight between I and j will start from 1 to n. It will start from 1 to, basically it will go from 1 to 5. So I equal to 1, j equal to 1, not required. I equal to 1 and j equal to 2, which means you are talking about this polygon, which means you are talking about this center polygon, that is 1, and this neighboring polygon, that is 2. Now weight need to be calculated. So there are few methods to find out the weights. One is inverse distance method, where weight will be equal to 1 by d, distance between those two polygons. So if distance between these two polygons is 5 meters, in that case weight Wij will be 1 upon 5. There is another method, fixed distance method. In that case, if you are assigning fixed distance of 10 meters, in that case whatever polygons are present within 10-meter radius of this center polygon, they will be assigned weight 1, and rest of the polygons will be assigned weight 0. There is another way to assign weight, that is contiguity based method. Contiguity based method have two ways, means the polygon sharing boundaries and polygon sharing boundary as well as corners. So if you are selecting polygon sharing boundaries, in that case polygon 1 and polygon 2, they are sharing boundaries. So this W12 will be assigned weight 1. W15 means between polygon 1 and 5, this will be assigned weight 1, and you see polygon 1, this one is polygon 1, and this one is smaller one, this one is polygon 4. This is not sharing the boundary, only corners are matching. So in this case, this W14 will become 0, and weight between polygon 1 and 3, this will again become 1. So this way gi star will be calculated for polygon 1. Similarly, it can be calculated for 2, 3, 4, 5, and hence for all. So this will be calculated polygon wise, where in general G statistic, these G index or I index, those are calculated for all the polygons, single index for all features present, but gi star score is for each separate polygons. So what does this tell you? Resultant gi star value will tell you that cluster is hotspot or not. How it will tell you cluster is hotspot or not? Same similar process. If gi star value is more than 1.96 towards right side, if it is more than plus 1.96, then it will be hotspot. And if value of gi star is less than 1.96, then it will be uh, if value is less than 1 minus 1.96, then it will become cold spot. And this will be at 95% confidence interval if 1.96 is taken. If you are considering 90% confidence interval, in that case z will be, threshold value for z will be plus 1.96 and minus 1.96. And there is a possibility that you may find that some feature is having very high value, means some polygon is having very high value, but in your output it is not coming as hotspot value, hotspot. That is because to become hotspot, the feature need to have high value and it need to be surrounded by high value, then only it will appear as hotspot. And for cold spot, feature should have low value and it should be surrounded by low values, then it will appear as significant cold spot. So this hot spot and cold spot can tell you where is the disease outbreak concentrated. Disease can tell you the location to location of disease outbreak. It will tell you potential hotspot for crime location, and other hotspot kind of analysis can be performed using Gates or GI star. So if you calculate these indexes in ArcGIS, there are tools present in ArcGIS under spatial statistics tool for Moran's I index, for general G statistics, and Gates or GI. So this tool you can find out in Arc toolbox, spatial statistics, analyzing pattern, and spatial autocorrelation. Here you need to choose the input feature class. Then input field means which field is having data, and how weight need to be calculated. As I told, there are few methods: inverse distance method, where weight will be inverse of distance; fixed distance method means features within the particular distance will have weight 1, and features outside that distance will have weight 0. And contiguity, edges only means features sharing boundaries will get weight 1, and features which are not sharing boundaries, they will get weight 0. So uh, other options of weight calculation you can find in the drop down, and when you press OK, you will get the Moran index value. Similarly, there is tool for general G statistics. This you can find in high-low. This tool you can find in same location: spatial statistic, analyzing pattern, high-low clustering, Gates or general G. This is name of the tool. and here also you have to follow the same steps, and this will tell you G score. And from that G score you can find out that there is a high value clustering is present or low value clustering present based on the uh, normal distribution curve. And there is a tool for hotspot analysis, uh, and this tool is present in spatial statistics tool and mapping clusters. And if you go inside mapping clusters folder, you will find out hotspot analysis getis odd gi star, that is name of the tool. And here you need to choose input feature, input field, and similarly how distance, how weight need to be calculated, and this will give you this kind of map. Here map is having some values. Red value means this is hotspot with 99% confidence interval, and this is this is hotspot with 95% confidence interval, and yellow is for hotspot with 90% confidence interval. This green is cold spot with 90% confidence, and rest of the polygons, they are non-significant. They are neither hotspot nor cold spot. They are not significant. So as I told uh, while telling Gettys or GI, that to become hotspot, high value need to be surrounded by high value. You can see here high value of this polygon is 452, but still it is non-significant because it is surrounded by lesser values. Only this value is 452, next value is 54, that is very less compared to this value is 44, very less compared to this 450. So this is not coming as hotspot. Here 516, but surrounding is having lesser value, so again this is not hotspot. This one, this which is cold spot with 90% confidence. 90% confidence means z score is less than minus 1.68. So and also this means cold spot means low value polygon should be surrounded by lower values. So value is 51 and it is surrounded by lower values 3, 15, 9 and 49. So that is why this is flagged as potential cold spot with 90% confidence. Here in this case you can see there are hotspot with 99% confidence interval, because high value 449 is surrounded by 640, 520, 170 and 90. So because of high value of itself and high value in surroundings, these polygons are coming as potential hotspots. Here also uh, they are coming hotspot, but significance level is little lesser because not many or not all the surrounding polygons are having high values, only this is having high value. So that is why this polygon itself is having 950 cases, but confidence interval is lesser in this case. So this way you can interpret your hotspot as well as cold spots. So now I will go for I will quickly go for another method of finding out risk mapping, finding out risk or finding out percentage or finding out probability of occurrence of disease at some particular location, or probability of having pollution level more than some particular threshold at some particular location. So that is called risk mapping. So done this can be done using geostatistics method, and this can be done using geostatistic in using Kriging method. Geostatistic is basically uh, applied statistic or branch of applied statistic which make use of regionalized variable instead of random variable. We know a lot about random variable, but random variable does not have positions, while regionalized variable is used to describe a geographical distribution. So basically it has location value, positional values. So it describes the geographical distance and exhibit spatial continuity. So this regionalized variable and concept of geostatistic interpolation is used generally in the cases when we are working on some phenomena which is continuous phenomena, and sampling for that phenomena at every location is practically not possible. So in that case we collect sample at few location, and based on those sample values are interpreted at unsampled location, and inferences are made based on those interpolated map. So this sample collected, they can be of different size, shape and orientation. Different shape, size and orientation, I mean from this that it can be point sample, line sample, polygon sample or column sample, to where you have length, width and depth also. So this is also called support. But in our case where we work on disease, uh, we need to find out disease risk. In that case our sample type is point geometry only, so we don't have to worry about orientation and size, so these things doesn't matter. Geostatistical analysis is basically a term given by Mathron in 1963. He used this term geostatistics as the application of formalism of random function to the recurrence and estimation of natural phenomena. So this concept of geostatistics can be split in two main parts, and these parts are successive two, which means first part should be completed, then only we can go for second part. So here those two parts are written. This geostatistical analysis can be performed if there is a theoretical basis present for expressing spatial structure, or theoretical basis present for expressing structural properties of natural phenomena in in a useful mathematical form as semi-variogram. So what this statement means is there should be a theoretical uh, uh, function present for present to model spatial autocorrelation. So earlier we have seen there is a Moran I index that calculates the spatial autocorrelation. So that index basically gives you single value. That is that value is for is that value tells you the level of autocorrelation. But here in this case we need a function up to what distance autocorrelation is present and what is the relationship. So basically it need to be calculated relationship between a variable x at location I and variable x at location j. So relationship between these two need to be calculated. That is calculated using semi-variogram. So once this theoretical basis for semi-variogram is present, then only next step can be performed, basically estimation of uh, value at unsampled location, that is done using Kriging method. So let's see what is semi-variogram. So basically to perform Kriging there are few assumptions that Kriging is the name of method to do interpolation. Interpolation is method to find out value at unsampled location based on the samples calculated. So here assumption for the kriging is your data should be following random distribution, and there should be correlation present, or correlation between variable at location x and at location x plus d should be function of distance. So basically it is telling that your covariance should be a function of distance. So if you need to find out covariance between your random variable, or if you need to find out correlation between uh, regionalized variable at location I and correlation between regionalized variable at location j, in that case distance should be known between I and j, and you can directly tell that this is a covariance between regionalized variable at location I and regionalized variable at location j. So from that assumption this semi-variogram concept is derived, and here the semi-variogram is represented as gamma h. H is the separation between uh, two sample locations. Basically it is separation between I and j. It is calculated in this way: 1 by 2 expected value of fx minus f of x plus h square. Here your fx is value of regionalized variable at some location, fx plus h is value of regionalized variable at location at h distance away from this location. So expectation value of this is calculated and plotted. So here you can see semi variance versus distance graph. So this graph goes like this, and this graph will follow this kind of pattern only if there is auto correlation present. What this graph tells you, that there is auto correlation present up to this distance. After this distance there is no auto correlation present. So this distance up to which autocorrelation is present, that is called range. After range this graph get achieves the continuum value, and that value is called sill of this semi-variogram. And you can see at distance h equal to 0 this graph is not having some value. This graph is not having semi variance value 0. This is starting from some positive value at distance h equal to 0. So this value, basically semi variance value at distance 0, is called nugget. This value basically comes because of the measurement error present in the data. This need to be modeled separately. So there can be different models. There are different models to model this relationship theoretically. This is the formula to uh, find out semi-variance value experimentally. Here data is coming fx and fx plus h, these are the observed values, and if you are putting observed values here you will get semi-variance value. But theoretical function need to be fitted between semi-variance and distance. There are models like spherical model, exponential model. Whichever model is best fitted in this distribution, that is considered as semi-variogram function, and that function is used as a fundamental for Kriging interpolation. So here is the formula to perform Kriging interpolation, where z cap is the interpolated value at any location, m is mean of the data, zi is the sample value at location I, wi is weight for that sample I, and this weight is calculated from that semi variogram. So semi variogram plays role in calculation of these weights. Detailed, if you want to understand more detail about Kriging interpolation, you can refer to some standard literature. So basically there are many kind of Kriging present: simple Kriging, ordinary Kriging, universal regression, co-Kriging and indicator Kriging. So in our case we will be using indicator Kriging. So I will explain only indicator Kriging. So as it is clear from the name indicator, so which means data is of indicator kind, means yes no kind of data is present, which means indicator Kriging is applied over binary category of data only. Rest of these Kriging variants are applied for continuous variable only. They cannot be applied for uh, categorical data. So, but indicator Kriging can be applied for binary data where yes, no, or 1, 0 is present. So, basically, here categories need to be created if they are not present. Categories can be created by applying a threshold value. How threshold value can be applied? Simple, if x is your measured value, so then you can put if x is greater than some threshold t, then indicator value will be 1. If x is less than threshold value t, less than or equal to threshold value t, then indicator value will become 0. So this way indicator data can be made. Basically categorical data between yes and no, it can be made. So if you are interested in finding out probability of having pollution level more than some particular threshold, in that case your x is will be your pollution level, uh, and t will be your threshold value. So in that case if in that case if pollution level is exceeding your threshold value, in that case indicator uh, variable so will have value 1. If your sample value is having, if your sample value is less than threshold value, then indicator value will become 0. So this way from uh, float type data of pollution level you will get 1 and 0 kind of data after applying this threshold condition. Also threshold condition can be based on quantile, based on mean, median, or any other thing. You can set threshold value based on seriousness of the cases or seriousness of the pollution level or whatever is your measured variable. Once you are having 1 and 0 kind of representation of your data, later on Kriging can be performed. So later on, if you are performing the Kriging, you will whatever interpolated value you will get, those values will be basically probability estimates of having uh, value of the variable more than threshold value. So in this case, as I told uh, in in few slides earlier, that Kriging is having some assumption that data should be following random distribution and all. That assumption is not required in case of indicator Kriging. Another important point to make indicator data is you should not put threshold value very high or very low, so that there are very few pairs of 0 and 1. So what it means is, suppose your x is suppose your x is lying between 10 and 100, and you are putting threshold value equal to 90. In that case your number of ones will be very lesser and number of zeros will be very higher. In that case there will be very less pairs. If number of pairs are lesser, variogram cannot be made, and if variogram cannot be made, Kriging cannot be applied. because variogram is basic requirement for the kriging. So if you are putting threshold value properly, you will get this kind of semi variogram, and kriging can be performed. One example how you can perform this kind of analysis if you are having point data, because disease occurrence you can measure at, you can collect at some location, you go to some ground level and find out if some disease has occurred in some particular house or some particular person or not. Based on that, that sample can be collected. So in this image you can see some red dots are there, so they are basically disease positive points for some particular disease. And now this probability of having a person with this disease positive, that need to be calculated at all other locations. So this point data need to be converted to polygon data. This will be converted by making a fishnet, and fishnet you can calculate based on the number of samples present, and uh, based on understanding of disease on the ground level. Basically, to create a fishnet you need to define the cell size. That cell size statistically can be decided based on a formula. There is a relation between cell size versus area, total area of the region versus number of points present. Using that relation, cell size can be defined, or what is the extent up to which disease is related to its neighbors. Based on that concept, cell size can be decided. So once you have this fishnet of cells, you need to count how many positive patients are present within each fishnet, and this counting you can do from the spatial join tool. So spatial join, after performing spatial join, you will have this fishnet, and fishnet is having number of cases present in each grid. So after having that count, you need to convert that count to indicator data. So you need to apply the threshold. In this, in case of disease threshold, you decide what is the critical value. So critical value for some disease may be one patient within this cell, or critical value may be if there are more than 10 patients present in this area. So that need to be decided based on the expert advice. So once you are having indicator data, you can apply indicator kriging and you will get this kind of map. So first we will see this. So here in this case, this after applying this spatial join, number of cases within one grid were calculated, and critical value was 4 in this example case. So which means if number of patients are 4 or more, then it will be 1. If it is less than 4, then it will become 0. So let's see here, here count was 1, so indicator data is 0, and if count is 4 it is 1, and 8 it is 1, and if it is less than 4 it is 0. So indicator kriging is applied over this column. So this application can be done using geostatistical tool present in ArcGIS software. If you want to do using open source tools and techniques, then there is a library GStat present in R. So using R and GStat library, you can perform kriging analysis. And here is semi-variogram for this disease occurrence. What it tells you, what it tells us, what is the range? Let's see here. If you see this semi-variogram, after this limit, semi-variogram is getting its continuum value, which means disease occurrence is related up to this distance only, which is around 100 meters. This tells you if a person is positive with some disease at a location, then there is a chance of having disease spread within 100-meter region. And now we will see this indicator kriging output. Here you can see points are clustered, and wherever more number of patients are present, that area is marked as area with high probability, and wherever points are scattered, it is marked with lesser probability. And here you can see this region is having only one point, only one patient, but still this region is marked as uh, high risk, high probability, because this region is surrounded by so many points. And similar is the case here, so you can interpret this output in this way. So this way you can find out probability of having a disease, probability of having a pollution level more than some particular threshold and all. And using Getty sort you can find out potential hotspots. So that's end of my lecture. Thank you for your attention.